Welcome back to another Real Champs movie review. Today I'm going to be discussing James Gunn's new Superman, the first cinematic entry to the new DCU. Look, as soon as the credits rolled, I had a huge smile on my face. It's hopeful, it's human, and it finally feels like someone cracked the code on how to adapt Superman for modern audiences. There are definitely a few things I didn't love, some tonal inconsistency and overstuffed writing, but overall, I'm excited. Not just about this movie, but what it means for the future of the DCU. If I had to describe this movie in one sentence, it's extremely fun, it's ambitious, full of emotion, with a bright future of what's to come. I've been rooting for Gunn's vision of DCU from the start, and as many of you know, this was my most anticipated film of the year. So, stick around as I break down what worked, what didn't, and whether this new Superman truly soars, all without spoilers. This week's podcast episode will be a full spoiler discussion, so be sure to come back and join in on the conversation. I went into this with huge expectations. Let's be honest, the DCEU was all over the place. It lacked vision. So knowing that Gunn, fresh off delivering one of the best trilogies in the MCU, was taking the reins here, I had hope, especially if he pulled inspiration from stories like All-Star Superman. But I was worried that he might lean too heavily on comedy, undercutting emotional moments, something that he's been guilty of before. So, how did it compare to past Superman films? This one skips the origin story entirely. Superman has already been active for about 3 years, and he and Lois are already dating. We're dropped into a world that feels lived in, where metahumans exist and giant monsters don't surprise anyone anymore. I genuinely love that. The Justice Gang, featuring Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, are corporate-sponsored heroes funded by Maxwell Lord. The romantic angle is refreshing too. Lois already knows Clark's identity. I've been needing more romance from comic book movies, and we are finally getting that here. Does it feel like a James Gunn movie? Definitely in parts. His knack for emotional parent-child dynamics shows up beautifully here between Clark and his parents. The humor is there, sometimes too much. It feels like James Gunn struggles with allowing the audience to sit in their emotions. Without spoilers, there's a powerful confrontation between Superman and Lex. It's building up, full of emotion, only for it to be undermined immediately by humor. Dude, let me sit with my emotions. This is also the biggest ensemble he's worked with, and unfortunately, not everyone gets the time they need. David Corenswet as Superman, incredible. He brings heart, warmth, and a deep sense of conviction. We spend a lot more time with Superman than we do with Clark, but even still, there's a vulnerability that grounds him. There's a monologue he has with Lex that just floored me. He talks about struggling like any other human, and it's such a beautiful, humanizing moment. Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane, she's great. Strong, smart, and emotionally layered. But I still wanted a bit more from her arc. Her chemistry with Corenswet is excellent. Nicholas Hoult as Lex does well with what he's given. Unfortunately, the character itself isn't written as strongly as it could have been. His motives, his choices just aren't fully fleshed out. The same goes for many of the side characters. The Justice Gang, the Daily Planet crew, they're fun, but they eat up screen time from the central story. However, Mr. Terrific steals every scene he's in. We just didn't really need so many of the other characters. The result, it's a movie that has too many characters and not enough depth for most of them. Tone-wise, it's a bit all over the place. It's fun, at times too funny, it's hopeful, mythic, and heartfelt. It really does feel like it was pulled from the pages of a comic book. The world building is bold. It doesn't slow down to explain who's who. You're expected to keep up. That might frustrate some viewers, especially those who aren't as deep into comic book lore. But this easily is the best on-screen Superman we've had. He knows people by name. He shows righteous anger when needed, but he never loses his kindness. He feels approachable and aspirational, like the Superman I've been wanting to see. Now, here's my biggest concern. The movie often feels like it's setting things up. There are plot threads introduced that feel like teases for future films, and while the core story is resolved, some elements just feel unfinished. I hope they pay off later, but only time will tell. Let's talk visuals. The flying scene's gorgeous. The action, it's fluid and thrilling. Unlike Man of Steel, where some fights felt too fast to follow and too large at scale, here everything breathes a little more. And there's a wonderful standout one-shot sequence that reminded me a lot of what James Gunn did on Guardians Volume 3. Pacing-wise, it moves well, it doesn't drag, but again, too many characters means too much time spent away from the people we actually care about. The score was fantastic. A reworked version of John Williams' theme hits hard in all the right places. Thankfully, Gunn avoids dumping his usual playlist vibe here. The music is cinematic and emotionally resonant. Theme-wise, the big one is identity. Clark is trying to figure out where he fits in a world that both praises and fears him. The tension between responsibility and personal cost plays out beautifully. But there's also this deeper idea of choice. A specific interaction towards the end of the second act that makes this point hit hard. And it stuck with me. On a personal level, the film resonated. It speaks to that feeling of being responsible for everything and everyone, but also feeling unsure if you're enough. And it reminds us that family isn't just who we're born into, it's who we choose. So who is this movie for? Look, if you love James Gunn's Guardian trilogy, you'll find a lot to enjoy here. If you didn't, this might be a harder sell. The film expects you to have at least some background in comic book lore. It doesn't hold your hand like a traditional origin story would. I think a lot of general audiences might struggle with that. But for longtime fans, this feels like a Superman made for you. Is that a good thing or bad? I'm not sure. But if the early phases of the MCU taught us anything, is that you have to make your stories approachable to all audiences for maximum return and box office success. Should you see it in theaters? Absolutely. Between the visuals, the sound, the score, it's theater-worthy experience. Despite a few flaws, this lands in my top 5 superhero movies ever. I give this an 8.5 out of 10. This rating might change as I see it more, but I'm sticking to it for now. But I want to hear from you. Are you watching it this opening weekend? Are you cautiously optimistic? Let me know your spoiler-free thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned. We'll be dropping a full spoiler breakdown this Sunday on the podcast, so hit the bell if you don't want to miss it. We'll see you guys on Sunday.